Back now to the search for Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy. Let's bring in Jeffrey Halstead. He's the former police chief for Fort Worth, Texas, also a spokesman for Genesis. As Fort Worth police chief, you were managing a larger department. A lot of criticism has been directed at the Tucson authorities for the way they have handled this case thus far. How do you see that?
Well, one thing that is definitely a challenge for them is the high-profile nature of this case. I mean, think about it. In my 38 years in this profession, I've never heard the President of the United States weigh in within 48 hours of a missing person investigation that led to an abduction. With that said, the challenges with law enforcement is that strategic focus of the investigation and then making sure too much information is not released. A lot of times we do get criticized. I've been criticized many, many times, but the integrity of this investigation, especially in these crucial steps of gathering data, looking at potential isolated targets and then leads, it's got to be done exactly right.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the Idaho homicides where it went, a month with everybody thinking, oh, they don't have any leads, they don't have any information. And of course, the suspect in that case, Bryan Kohberger, was arrested pretty quickly after all of that. So yes, when law enforcement keeps its cards close to the vest, it can be a good thing.
It's great for the investigation. It's an extreme challenge for our media partners as well as family members. They are being briefed, if not 3 to 4 times per day. But, we saw in their videos, their frustration, their hurt, and the human side of this that it takes its toll on. That does increase the level of stress for the investigators. I mean, they're probably averaging 2 to 3 hours a night of sleep if they're lucky, but they are strategically focused. I would imagine throughout this weekend, by the time we get to Monday or Tuesday, they're going to have some strong evidentiary leads, and then they will go very, very quiet as they focus on those isolated leads and building a strong case against the perpetrator and or suspects involved.
It's my understanding, that those letters, those emails that have come in to TMZ and maybe local media stations, that they were sent through one of those media masking services, if you will, where you can send an email to a site and it'll remail it without, with encryption and all kinds of protections to keep from identifying the original sender. Is there any way to break through that morass? Is there any way to identify who actually sent these emails?
There is, but it will take time. It's not immediate. It's not like in the movies where they can have it in about 17 minutes. But I will say that for all of those potential people that think they're going to take advantage of the situation and send some kind of encrypted or, dark web kind of notification, law enforcement hires the people that can break a lot of those codes so that they can get the information, they can get the intelligence, and they can get that IP address in the server so that they can start doing their investigation. It will take a lot of time. It is not instantaneous, but rest assured that they are going to have some significant technology advancements as to those ransom notes and the other email-based communications.
I'm sure that the local authorities are also, and federal authorities for that matter, because the FBI is involved, they're also crunching the information that is coming from the cell towers in the area. I mean, this thing happened well after midnight, maybe 2:30 in the morning, and there aren't that many vehicles on the road at that time. It would seem like they would probably have some pretty good information just from looking at who was pinging off the local cell towers.
Yeah, advancements in technology, and that's what our company, we lead the world as far as protective communications, and we know that there are methods and means in order for them to get the right information, the right data. And the advancements they made with, seizing a vehicle and going through and being very detailed, going back to the scene for another cursory search, those lead a lot of us to believe they are starting to get much stronger information and data from all of this that has been either submitted to the lab, have the secondary experts or third-party technology experts that can get them in the information that they need.
Okay, so you don't see seizing the blue Subaru that was parked in her garage. They just grabbed that yesterday. You don't see that as a sign of sort of a weak investigation? You think it's a promising part?
Well, you got to remember that, the first cursory search, and then it led to the announcement of they felt that she was abducted, and then it turned into a crime scene and a criminal investigation. Then homicide was deployed, then the FBI gets involved, then they start retracing. Now, what was the purpose in going back for the seizure? More than likely, that's going to be evidentiary in nature, and that will come forward once an arrest has been made. Until arrest has been made, and Title 39 in Arizona is very, very clear with this for public records. Until an arrest is made, a lot of this is protected information, and it really needs to be. But that grows a frustration level with a lot of our viewers, with our media partners, and especially with those so close to Nancy.
Sure. The family put out that 4-minute video, primarily led by Savannah Guthrie, which you, I guess, would expect because she is the experienced media communicator and well known to millions of Americans. But is there anything you heard in that almost 4 minutes that kind of piqued your interest?
Well, and know that it was orchestrated in coordination with the FBI.
Sure.
Rarely will family members want to do something on their own because they don't want to jeopardize any of the tactical steps for this investigation. With that said, what was the most compelling for me is the volume of pain and hurt they are feeling. A lot of people don't understand this is extremely out of the ordinary. I mean, I still cannot remember in my career and following these stories across the U.S., one that was such a whodunit type case. But I know how skilled these investigators are. I've seen them firsthand work miracles in the investigation, but they're strategic, they remain focused, and they know the end result is getting closer as they move forward.
And there's an awful lot that's going on behind the scenes that we are not privy to. I mean, just the investigative capabilities of the FBI and some of those other federal agencies, they are, well, just beyond belief, just about.
In the last 5 years, especially the last decade, absolute incredible advancements in technology for reaching into devices, grabbing data. The challenge will be some of that old video that the sheriff was talking about that has been looped over. It's not to say that it's impossible to get that data. It will take longer, and there's going to be an expertise level that does nothing but that. They're going to have to contract with those people, get them in. Then their crime lab, I'm sure, is absolutely overwhelmed with the volume of evidence from the first round of the search warrant when they activated a crime scene, and then the secondary searches and anything else after that. All of that has to be processed in accordance with not just the compliance mandates, but in order to prepare this evidence to get ready to go for either a grand jury or an investigative conclusion phase.
So if the President of the United States says, as he did aboard Air Force One on his way to Palm Beach, we should have some answers coming up very soon, that would lead you to believe that they are close to cracking the case or announcing a suspect at least.
That would lead me to believe that. And I think the challenge for the law enforcement profession is anytime that high profile of an elected official weighs in, we are just trusting that the right people brief them. And that would be more than likely the head of the FBI and or the chain of command through the FBI to get that specific briefing. With that said, it can become a challenge when a high profile elected official makes a statement like that, and yet the investigation is not as close as they said in their words. It's okay. They're still going to remain highly focused with that tactical edge that they have in this investigation. They are not going to make missteps, and they'll be ready to get their suspect named and or make an arrest when they know they have probable cause and it is successful.
Jeffrey Halstead, now with Genesis and formerly with the Fort Worth Police Department, the chief there. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.